This is Oddisee, and it's okay not to be okay. One side of my family's from Sudan, one side of my family's from Washington, D.C. So I kind of grew up experiencing two cultures that mental illness was kind of something that they would love to pretend didn't exist. You know, a lot of black people tend to think that, oh, we don't have mental illness issues. So my Sudanese side would kind of sweep it under the rug. It was a shameful thing that a lot of superstition was involved with. And my African American side wouldn't even acknowledge it in the first place. Oftentimes, having any sign of mental illness is seen as a sign of weakness. So, you know, I had a lot of family members who grew up in tough circumstances that were severely affected by it, but had no way to articulate it. Growing up in a circumstance where mental health was something that wasn't talked about, I guess I began to understand it when I saw the effects it was having on a lot of my family members when I came of age. You know, when you're younger, you don't really realize that a cousin or an aunt or an uncle may be acting, you know, out of character because they have some sort of a mental health issue. You just think that, you know, they may be a little off kilter or quirky or something, or that, you know, that crazy family member that you kind of just dismiss in almost a comedic way. And then you get older and you realize that there's actually something there. So that's how I kind of came into it. Even now, it's not something that, with anybody who I've known who's experienced it in my family, it's not something that I could openly talk about with them or with any other family members, to be honest with you. I'm definitely no exception to the rule when it comes to artists using music as a tool to deal with, you know, anything on their mind, any troubling issues. Growing up, it was definitely that for me. You know, I grew up in a house where I had a stepmother who I didn't get along with, you know, and the circumstances were tough, but the thing that was always there for me was music. You know, I started off as an artist first, an illustrator and a painter, and that was a way of therapy for me growing up. Any issues that I had, family or friends or even just with self, I would kind of depict them through illustration, and it seemed for me as if those problems were left on that paper or canvas, and eventually that transformed into music after that, where, you know, the feelings got left in the recording booth, you know, on that song or in that beat. A lot of my instrumentals are just pure emotion put into them, you know. I think the most challenging aspects in the music industry for an artist are the fact that you are paid to be creative, and any creative can relate to that, whereas any other individual can go into work for a 9 to 5. They're given what they're supposed to do, and they can do it almost on autopilot, and you know that within 2 weeks or 1 week, depending on where you live, you'll be paid. But with an artist, whether you are inspired or not, you have to be creative. Your career rests upon your ideas, and the stress that can give you, if you don't know how to handle it, can be extremely overwhelming. And oftentimes, for most artists, by our nature, we're introverts. And we live in a world today where the artistry demands that you be more of a public figure. You know, artists today have to really, really accept the fact that you can no longer create something in private and someone else releases it in public for you. You are the figurehead. You are what the brand is based on. And that itself, I wouldn't be surprised if we'll see more breakdowns from people because of the type of artist that we have to be in this day and age. Whether it be hip hop or any other aspect, there's a fundamental issue in urban environments with the fact that you grow up in hostile environments that don't allow you to be expressive and articulate emotion because it's a sign of weakness. Therefore, you never are able to talk about mental illness in the first place because it's also seen as a sign of weakness. So for me, it starts at home, where I know personally there's members in my family that are not. Growing up, you weren't allowed to cry. You know, if you got whipped in the streets, somebody beats you up, you can't come home and cry. You're not allowed. They don't express it. It's not something that's taught to be a good thing. I think that's where a lot of the change needs to come from, and that's why I'm fond of what you're doing now, and saying it's okay not to be okay. But it's got to be a general consensus all at once. You know, it takes more people like us to speak out about it.